Hi all you wonderful quilters, this is Kathy from True Cotton Company in Carmel, Indiana. You can find the location of the store in the description box down below, as well as the website. Love for you to check us out if you're in the area, and if not, look at the website, see if you find anything that you love. Today we're going to make this Courthouse step table runner, table topper. The pattern is down in the description box, free. A link for it, and you can get the free pattern that I've got ready for you on the website. This is actually me on editing day, so I found that our first intro was quite loud. The cars were driving by quite quickly and loud, so I wanted to redo that so it was less noise for all of you. And so I'm gonna meet you from a few days ago down at the front door of the shop, and we'll get on making this wonderful pattern. Alright, let's go inside. If you watched our shop tour, you can remember some of this. Today, I've picked out what I think I'm going to use in this version. I've been thinking about it for quite a while. And I made this fun blue with the multicolored warm prints. I've been wanting to work with this dark green, this Christmas green from Grunge. And so I thought I'd make that the background shade. And I'm going to work with these white shades to just give a subtle variation where the bright warm colors are in this quilt. So I need 5 of these. Alright, well let's go upstairs and we're gonna see how to cut all this out and iron. Alright, we're upstairs to the cutting table. We're gonna make the Courthouse Steps table topper, which is a free pattern available on our website. I've written this up. The Courthouse step block is a block that's been available since the 1800s, so it's a very traditional quilting block. And it's a really fun one for a beginner to make. Well, you do have a lot of seams that you're sewing, practicing your 1/4 inch, but not a lot that you have to nest together and match up in this project. So I think it's a fun one to really get your 1/4 inch seam down. I've got all the fabric needs and requirements here. As we're cutting, I'll go through everything so you can also, if you like to hear the directions more than read them. So for the background, which is this Christmas green that I'm using for Grunge, I need 1/2 yard. And what I like to do is, as the fabric is folded, is really line up, and it's hard to tell on this dark on navy blue. It'll be easier when we get to some of the white shades. But line this 1 inch line right up along the seam here. And then I like these Quilter Select rulers, but if it has a lot of less grip, or has some grippy stuff on the back so it slides less. But if you're working with a ruler that slides more, move your fingers pretty close to this edge. You're gonna cut for a little bit. Slide the fingers up. We're right at that 1/4 inch mark. Coming up. And then do this last bit. And that'll help keep everything really straight so you get this nice cut. And then we're going to need to press this out, and we'll cut it into the pieces that we need. Let me set this one off to the side. And we're going to do the white here. We'll call this steps, and you need 5/8 mix and match. And I know I'm working with 1.5 inch strips. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a 1/4 yard of these. And I'm doing that same thing where I line up right along the bottom and then make that straight cut. And like I said, with this Quilter Select being so grippy, it slides a lot less. And if this is your first quilt that you're making, because this is a great beginner's quilt, make sure you move your hands up, get into that good habit. I'll try to be better this next one. Next, I'm working with the grunge. It's clear water. And we're gonna just line that up and then just move on up, pull it away, and that way if anything you do need, it's time to change the blade and a thread gets loose, you can get that. I think all these whites are going to be a fun little variation, really subtle change in the middle of this project. Well, I'm going to finish cutting the rest of these out, and I'm just, for ease today, I'm cutting out just a 1/4 yard of each one. And we'll be back and I'll show you how I'm gonna press all this fabric. All right, we're back here at the iron, and now you can see that Christmas green and really see how pretty it is laid out. I do, because we've got all these deep creases in the fabric, I like to spray just with some water. Spray pretty evenly over. You don't want to heavily spray as much as I'm tempted this center area to really spray that. You want to make sure it's as even as you can across the whole thing. And then when you iron, you just want a nice hot iron. When you set it on, you're just letting the weight of the iron do the work. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just letting the weight and the heat of the iron do all the work. And you just, it does take a lot of time. And I know this is a part where I will speed up, but when you want to make a quilt and have everything come out really square and even, taking your time as you do this can really help with that process. And you can see that just this hot iron and taking your time, you can see how much flatter that is. And if you can tell, I'm not holding the iron tightly. I have a tendency to do a death grip even though I'm not pressing hard. Try and be real gentle. This fabric doesn't really need to be manipulated at this point. We're just trying to ease out all the tight grips. And I am fortunate here in the store to have this nice big ironing board. At home, I don't have this, and so there can be some moving of the fabric around more to get all the spaces. And I like to let the fabric cool. That helps it stay in the position you ironed it. It has a tendency, if you move it while it's hot, to return to the position that it was in. But if you let it take some time, and like I said, this is what quilting is, a slower process, and we should enjoy the work. There's no 5-minute quilts, so just take your time, enjoy all the steps along the way, because while you won't find me at home too often ironing clothes, I do iron all my fabric, so it is a step I think is really important. Like I said, just let that cool down. I know this is adding time to everything you do, but it really just does set you up for more success if you've prepped properly. Now, if you like to use a lot of starch, this is a good time to use starch. I just usually use water, but I know lots of people like a lot of starch, best press, or there's all kinds of sizing ingredients that you can do. Now with these fabrics, I cut a 1/4 yard of each. You really just need an 1/8 of a yard if you're buying it. But I think for you to see how we're cutting out, and I don't mind having a little extra of a fabric as well. I think these are so pretty. These will be great to have little extra bits of. And we just come along. And you can see how beautiful, just with this, it's a really hot iron and it gets so much smoother from how tight it is on the bolts. And that one's beautiful. It's going to have that creams and the grays and the brighter pops of white. And we'll just keep doing this with all the fabrics. Do it really slow, let everything dry, the heat of the iron, and we'll come back and we'll cut out the rest of the quilt. Alright, we're back at the cutting table now. We've got this really nicely pressed piece of fabric. I'm going to show you how I line everything up so I get some straight seams. I like to take the 2 salvage edges and I'm going to put them right together so that they're lined up. And then I want to look at the bottom edge and make sure it's lying really straight and even. Like if it's like this, you can see it starting while I'm straight at the top. I've got it not straight at the bottom. Move that till it looks nice and straight for you. And that gets you better on the grain. And then I like to put the full piece towards me, making sure everything's still lined up there. Now I do cut left-handed and right-handed. I know for a lot of you, you may not like to do this. When I trim off my first piece, because I've worked so hard to get everything nice and lined up, that I started practicing, so I just cut left-handed. And so the same way I did with my right hand, just moving up along. And I do always notice with this one, since this is my less dominant hand, I need to be a little slower, a little firmer grip. But if you didn't like to do it that way, you could trim off this edge here, flip the fabric around, or just rotate the mat around so that you're in your position. And I know a lot of people use their lines on their mat as well as the ruler. I kind of ignore the lines on my mat unless I'm wanting a straight line to put the fabric on. But we're cutting 1.5 inch strips, and so I line up at the 1.5 mark the whole way up here. This is going to be easier to see when we get to the white fabric. I know we're on a dark fabric with a dark background. And so we've got our first 1.5 inch strip. Another way that I will do things pretty often, because about every 3 to 4 cuts, you're going to want to straighten back up again. You just will start sliding ever so slightly, even at the best of times. So I will cut a 3 inch, because 2 1.5s is 3. And you could do even more. We make sure. And then I come and I subcut that into 1.5. And that's really commonly how I cut at home. Making sure we get that lined up really well. Make a nice straight cut. And so now we're getting these 1.5 inch strips. I'm going to show you also, this my new favorite tool, is the Stripology Ruler. And so with Stripology, it's the same way. You're going to do the But you're going to do a second fold, lining the selvage edge up with the fold at the top. And you want that to lay really straight and even. And so here I will use my lines on my ruler to kind of make sure I'm pretty straight along these two edges, because that's going to let me know that I have a nice straight line. And when I bring this ruler over, I'm going to use this, not the black 0 line, I'm going to use the white line that's a 1/2 inch. That way, with the dark fabric, I like to line up on a white line. And here, just making a cut right at the 0. I always make sure that one comes away clearly. And now we're doing 1 1/2, and those are actually marked with stars at the bottom. So you're just going to come across and do 1 1/2, and then you're going to cut at the 3. You'll go to your next star at the 4 1/2. And now to the 6. We're doing the 7 1/2. We're going to go to the 9. The 10 1/2. This, you really want to make sure you have a nice sharp blade as you're doing this, because as you're cutting, make sure you're making good clean cuts along the way. And let's go to 15. Let's see, that one, I think not quite fully even, you can see. So that, but all the rest of these are good 1 1/2 inch strips. And you can see how quickly the Stripology ruler works. It does take a little time and practice. It's become an absolute favorite tool of mine. And so I'm going to go ahead and just leave this little one off to the side. Let's cut a white one out. And this whole quilt is 1 1/2 inch strips. And the white just so it's easier. And here, lining up that top and the bottom, so it's really even. And then, so I'm using the Stripology ruler. I do that second fold, make sure everything's quick and easy. Now I'll cut one with the regular first, and then we'll use the Stripology, because this will be a little easier to see this ruler lining up. Let me flip this around the way I like it to have it, with the fold at the bottom. And I just go to that 1 inch line. Make sure we're getting all this fabric off here on the edge. And I've unfortunately put my rotary cutter way over there. And here, like I said, I will use my left hand. And come along and just trim that, and then do 1 1/2 inch, which is lining right at that 1 1/2 inch line the whole way down. Making sure you have a line here at the bottom. And then now with the right hand, cutting the whole way up, just like that. And you just go along, like I said, I'm just always that speed you can get with your Stripology ruler. I love, and how it has those marks that help with your she uses a lot of 1 1/2 and 2 1/2 inch strips, so she gave some nice markings there. Let me move that over so the 0's there. You just like to make sure that you're quite even along the top and the bottom. Cut. And then just follow the stars. Just like that. We'll do that with all the white fabrics. We'll come back and start subcutting these strips into their pieces. Alright, I'm at my last piece of fabric. I've got my 4 other whites all cut out into 1.5 inch strips. I want to take this last one. And this actually gets cut into 2.5 inch squares. Because yeah, I need 4 2.5 inch squares. If you see right here in the yellow, there's 4 2.5 inch squares in the center of this kind of lantern looking piece there. And so I want to cut those. So I need a 2.5 inch strip. So in this one you certainly just need a little bit. Oh, that feels wrong there. Sometimes you can just feel that it's not full here at the bottom. It's just not folded itself up the way it should. And so here, just one 2.5 inch strip is all you need. You make sure this 0 is going to cut off. And we come to the 2.5, which is the square. And so we're just like that. And we just need this one because we need 4 2.5 inch squares. So now we'll start subcutting this. So I just take that piece laid out. I'll go ahead and turn that salvage side up so that I can see to cut off my salvage. I'm just gonna line up along here, cut off the salvage edge, and now go to the 2.5 and the 5. And that gets me 4 2.5 inch squares, which is what I need for the center section of each. Now I'm going to come to the next piece in the step. Let me check my directions. I need 8, and I'll just come up from the bottom since I started with these 2.5 inches. I need 8 12.5 inch. So I'm going to start with this one because I might need a 4th one. And this is one where I do really like we come here and we're going to come to 12.5 inches. Make sure that's what I'm doing, 1.5 by 12.5. I've got 2. And so with this one I recommend 4 strips because this isn't, you could get one more 12.5, and if I didn't have the 4th strip available to me, I would do that, but I would still need to cut another strip. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut these 12.5 inches. And so now we've got 4. And I'm going to go ahead and just layer these up because I've got the big ruler and it's really sharp right now. If I take my time and be careful, I can layer up these 2 strips and I can cut 4 out. One of the nice things with either ruler that you're using, you can lay these up to a level that you're comfortable with and just make a quick cut like that. So now we put those over there. We've got our 8 12.5 by 1.5 pieces. We'll start with the next color, which is 10.5 inches. And we need 8. Ten and a half. Just take your time as you lay those up. Make sure you get your ruler lined up well. We're going to go to 10.5. And I'm going to see, I'm not sure. I can get right at 10.5 out of this. Let's see if the bottom one also. If I cut off that edge, I get exactly. So with that, you make sure you need 8 of these, and I got 4 and 8. So I was able to do that with just 2 strips. And you can see how little waste there is with that. So you might need another set of strips to get more, because just one little slip of the ruler could change that. We're getting into some smaller quantities now, so we need 8.5, which if we got the and I go to 8.5. Now I want to think a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I like to check that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. So right at the 17. Sure those line up, and we got 8 of those. Gonna put this little trash under there. We're coming up to our next color, and we need 6.5. And since we were able to get our 10.5, we know we need 2 of these strips. We should get 8. 6.5. Lining our ruler back up. Make sure I got that. Make sure we get that salvage end cut off. Bring that right down. We're going to go 6.5, and then a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for 13, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half for 19.5, which I don't need to cut because I just need 8. I was getting anxious, overly zealous with that. So now I just need to cut 4.5 inches. So let me put this out of the way. And so I'm going to layer 2 more strips up. And we're looking for 8, 1.5 by 4.5. Just make sure you line up with a line. We're going 4.5, and then a half. 1, 2, 3, 4. too. You could just do that with one strip probably, but that quickly got me those. All right, now we're gonna cut our green strips out. And I do want to say this green and white combination started coming to me, kind of how do we pick out our quilts fabrics. This started when there was a lady who was renovating a house, came in the shop, and she was talking, and she was like, she'd done a black and white decor in the house, except for one accent wall that was this deep dark green. Really pretty, stunning, modern design, so that was fun to get to see pictures of. And that got me thinking about, I just made this quilt in all the bright colors. What if I start to make it and I did it in a green with the white going throughout it? That could be really fun and modern. And then more recently, if you watched our pincushion, the Scrapbuster pincushion video that we did, I was wearing a green and white check shirt in that video. And when I saw that, it reminded me of the green and white I was thinking about back when the house renovation was happening. And then I was looking through a home decorating magazine recently, and it seems that that green with a lot of white and gold is a very popular, trending design color, at least in this magazine that I was looking at. And so with that, I was like, I have to make this green and white Courthouse steps quilt. And so you can just see that where we find inspiration for our quilting can certainly be looking at other quilts and magazines, other work that people are doing on Instagram and Pinterest, but also just in what's being designed, what colors we're drawn to, color palettes that you see, pictures of the ocean. There's really so much that we do that we can get inspiration from. So I'm going to start cutting out my background now. I want to cut 1.5 by 2.5, and I need to cut 8 strips, and since I need to focus, I can only talk about cutting now and not design inspiration. I can't cut, who knows what we'd be getting. Even though she marked these with the squares, I still need to focus. We're cutting 1.5 by 2.5, so we're going to the squares for 2.5, 5. We're at the 7.5, the 10, the 12.5, and the 15, the 17.5, and the 20. Let's see what we got. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's all we need. Look how quick. This cuts so quickly and is so much fun. I'm ready for my next version of the project. All right, we're doing, 4.5 now. So we get 1.5 by 4.5. I'm gonna go ahead and layer up 2. Let me make sure everything stays straight. It can shift a little, as I can see it happen to me here as I'm lining up, so I want to get that back. And now we're gonna line this up, make sure you've got everything really straight. We're doing 8 of the 4.5s. Make sure you get things lined up really well. Just cut your selvage off. You go to 4.5 and then the half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. And that gets us those 4, or 4 and then 8. And so we have that size ready. Now I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get the 6.5 out of this leftover bit. So I'm going to line up again. I'm going to cut here and cut 6.5. And I don't think I'll get the rest, but I'll check. 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, no way. But I did get 4, so I just need 4 more for 6.5. And cutting these quilts out does take some time. The ironing takes time. This cutting will take a little bit. But what you get is such a beautiful project in return. I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. I think it's going to be stunning. But right now the design's just in my head. It'll be really fun to see it come together. Now I'm at the 6.5, so I want to go to the 6.5. Get that, and that gets me my 8 6.5s. I need 8.5 now. So I'm at the 6.5, a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At 15. Set this off to the side. I've got 4 of those. I'm going to bring 1 more over, get 2 more, because that's an 8.5 I need to get. 2 more 8.5s, and then I'll work on my 10.5s, but we're at the 8.5 right now. So we cut off our salvage, we come to 8.5, and then a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And cut. That gets me to 4. Match that 4 for 8. And we take our last 2 strips here. Let me get the little bits in the trash. Line these up. Getting to our last cut, make sure you line everything up well. I know it's really tough to see with this dark fabric on this dark mat, but we're doing 8 of the 10.5. And if you remember, I think it just came. So I'm going to come right to this salvage and give myself as much space as I can for this. Just cutting off that salvage, coming to 10.5. Make sure that's what I'm doing. And then a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Cutting that edge off. Alright, we got just that little bit left over, but we got the last of this cut out. So that's everything for our pressing and ironing part of this video for step 1 in this beginning quilt series, making the Courthouse step table topper. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this process so far. Take time this week, cut out all these pieces, and then we'll see you back here next week where we're going to start sewing the project together. This is going to be a really fun breakdown of each step really closely. Certainly hope that you're having a great day. Be kind to yourself. Win that game of bob and chicken. Keep having fun. We'll see you next week. Bye.